Why are powerlifters so buff? If you go to your local meet expecting to see a bunch of brick-shaped dads with knee sleeves and poor social skills, but instead there's a guy who looks like he walked straight out of a Men's Health cover shoot while blasting anime music, deadlifting 700 pounds with ease, only to get red-lighted by the judges because they got distracted by his devilishly good looks. The old stereotype used to be that powerlifters were just out-of-shape bodybuilders who were just lazy about their training, taking naps between sets, bringing candy to the gym, only to spend 3 hours performing a total of 7 sets. But right now, powerlifters are coming out of the woodwork with physiques better than most high-level fitness influencers. Even in tested federations like the IPF, we have Russell Orhi, Reagan Stergakis, and even lighter guys like this guy, and we even have Swedish Tintin. But if they don't train for muscle hypertrophy, how are powerlifters so well built and strong at the same time? Well, it turns out there's actually a good explanation for why powerlifters, especially at the elite level, are absolutely yoked. So today we're diving into the reason why powerlifters are secretly bodybuilders who just happen to like squats, benches, and deadlifts. Let's start with the science. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but strength and hypertrophy training are tightly connected. In fact, more connected than Marcus Rule's traps are to his head. If you're getting stronger, especially in the moderate rep ranges, you are almost definitely gaining muscle, aka myofibrillar hypertrophy, which means you get actual muscle tissue and not just higher fluid retention or swelling. You also have neural adaptations, but those can only get you so far and are usually more acute than anything. Aka, if you have the same training plan and you run that for 8 weeks, during the first 4 you might get a lot stronger before slowing down. And that strength gain mostly comes from your central nervous system regulating how to use your existing muscles to produce more force. But over the next 4 weeks, you might slow down, and this is when muscle hypertrophy comes in, which mind you is very slow, and it can take months to even see any noticeable improvement. Now, most top-level powerlifters aren't exactly doing 1 rep maxes 6 days a week. Most of their training takes place between 3 to maybe 8 reps, and based on the literature and the effective reps model, as long as you train decently hard, that will result in muscle growth, just as well as sets of 10 to 15, but perhaps with even less fatigue per set. And because powerlifting is a weight class sport, there is a huge incentive for guys to pack on as much muscle as humanly possible without gaining fat. If you're lifting in the 83 kilo class and you're 82 kilos of lean beef and 1 kilo of bad decisions, you are more likely to outlift somebody who is 70% muscle and 30% Pop-Tarts, or 30% V-Shred. So yeah, they still lift heavy, they build muscle, and they need to be lean enough to fit into a weight class with as much muscle as possible, because more muscle means more force. And because most of them are genetic elites on top of that, a lot of them pack on muscle like an anabolic Belgian blue. As a powerlifter myself, who mind you only does it as a hobby, a big part of the off-season training is very similar to bodybuilding training in terms of exercises. Now, bodybuilders and powerlifters love to verbally abuse each other regarding who's stronger or who trains the best or whatnot. But in reality, powerlifters and bodybuilders train very similarly. Sure, the powerlifters prioritize the big 3 lifts, being the squat, bench, and deadlift, but their accessory work is usually something straight out of a Jeff Nippard push-pull legs program. They're doing lateral raises, lat pull-downs, leg curls, Bulgarian split squats, even though nobody actually likes those. But why would you even add in stuff like that to your program when all you want is to get strong at 3 separate lifts? Well, although the squat, bench, and deadlift all target most of the big muscles in the human body, they don't target any muscle groups that well. Yes, the squat is a great way to get bigger quads, especially if you turn into a high bar or a squat variation like the plat squat. But objectively speaking, it is a worse exercise for the quads compared to a leg extension, which exclusively performs knee extension, the prime function of the quads, and to a much larger degree than you could on squats without as many limiting factors. As an example, say if your chest is the limiting factor on bench, sure, it will get better by training bench, but it's usually smart to add in an exercise which targets the chest better, like a machine or cable chest fly. Isolating weak points equals bigger muscles equals more strength, and that's what we want. And in powerlifting at the top level, it's all about efficiency. Add in fatigue management, a concept more misunderstood than arching on bench, and you get training programs designed to maximize gains without crashing your nervous system. These guys are all training as much as they can recover from, which is gonna result in a lot of muscle hypertrophy because you do train with high mechanical tension and you don't overly fatigue yourself to the point of regressing into becoming a CrossFitter. It's progressive overload, it's smart programming, volume where it matters, and enough rest to not hate yourself. And my guy, that's also ideal in bodybuilding, but there's one thing powerlifting and bodybuilding heavily disagree on: PEDs. You see, right now there are two powerlifting realities. You have tested powerlifting with the IPF, with lifters like Russell Orhe, Regan Stergakis, Gavin Aiden, and guys who are shredded and strong who still have to pee in a cup more often than they check Instagram. Then there's reality B, the untested multiverse, where people like John Hack and Larry Wheels can bench 6 plates with ease, looking like they stepped out of a hyperbolic time chamber. In the untested world, the physiques are, let's say, enhanced. These guys are taking enough gear to kill a small bear, but they're also training like absolute monsters, and their physiques reflect that. Larry Wheels is often one many like to point to as being a super impressive powerlifting physique, but there are also much bigger guys like Eric Lillibridge, Petr Petres, and even guys who are both powerlifters and bodybuilders like Kyle Curvey or Stan Efferding. These guys are examples of how you can combine insane strength and solid muscle mass, and the real difference in muscle and strength between untested powerlifters and bodybuilders isn't that large. Heck, even 8-time Mr. Olympia Ronnie Coleman used to compete in powerlifting and was one of the strongest guys around in his prime. But yeah, these guys are all enhanced and not remotely realistic for the average person to ever look up to. However, in the tested world, guys are still jacked. Russell Orhe has the delts and chest of a Greek statue, Regan's quads look like they have abs, and yes, I am glazing a Danish guy and I'm not proud of it. And these are guys who do get tested more thoroughly than Olympic athletes during a Russian doping scandal. Sure, you can't guarantee that they're natural, there are drugs in every sport, but considering the super low financial incentive to being a good powerlifter, I think it's more likely that these guys are natural than your average social media influencer or even athletes in most other sports. So what does that tell you? Powerlifting, especially when done with serious intent and high-level programming, just builds muscle. Whether you are natural or not, you'll grow if you train smart, eat like a professional, and recover like it's your second job. Here's a quick theory I made up at 2 AM and refused to fact check. Powerlifters are buff because they don't care about being buff. They are much happier with their style of training because they receive a direct measure of improvement. With powerlifting, if you lift more weight, you get stronger, and that's easily trackable, even if it's not a 1-rep max. But in bodybuilding, for one, it's very difficult to visually spot your progress, especially if you've been training for a while, but stuff like body fat percentage, seeing small muscles improve, and even that posing stuff, that's all really difficult to assess and also super subjective. And I bet that's why so many bodybuilders turn to powerlifting or other strength sports, because they burn out from all the nitpicking in their own sport. The real irony here is that guys who chase strength ultimately build some of the most aesthetic physiques out there, because their strength is built on functional muscle mass. Now, functional muscle isn't really a thing, it's all the same stuff. Powerlifters at least strive to use that muscle for something, and strength is indeed functional. And heck, many of them are super athletic, not necessarily in terms of endurance, but they're definitely agile, and many present a crazy vertical jump, for example, because they train hard, they train smart, they manage fatigue, and most of them treat food like it's a performance enhancer. Add in some good genetics, good programming, and boom, you get lifters who look like they've been trying to get aesthetic. The takeaway here is that you don't have to choose between strength and size or aesthetics. The best powerlifters in the world are bodybuilders just in disguise. So the next time you guys see a powerlifter with an 8-pack just squatting 5, 6, 7 plates, then don't be surprised. They didn't sell their soul for aesthetics, they just trained well for a long time and probably had fun doing it. Yeah, there's always those super heavyweights who resemble the stereotypical powerlifter, but heck, if you compete tested and you want to be competitive at 350, 400 pounds, then you're not gonna be lean. And even being excessively lean can also hurt performance, which is why some powerlifters compete at higher body fat percentages, even if they're limited by a weight class. And that sort of stuff is also very subjective. But what do you guys think? Do you think powerlifters are the most underrated physiques in the gym? Or do you still believe that strength doesn't necessarily equal size in the same way? Yes, leverages and technical execution still matter, but I do also believe that hypertrophy, in every sense, if you do get more muscle, you will always get stronger. And if you're looking for coaching from somebody who's trained like a powerlifter and bodybuilder, but is just mediocre at both, send me a message on my coaching Instagram profile and let's figure something out. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.